Throughout the very long and vast DC multiverse, Sinestro has done some pretty twisted and messed up things throughout its course of history, and a lot of people just see Sinestro as a ruthless, maniacal villain. After all, he plays on everyone's fears of that concept. In fact, I'd like to argue with this specific comic that we get to see a side of Sinestro we don't normally see. More so than that, we get to see Sinestro even smile? And he's not smiling at like the torture of ruthless villains or anything. No, it's genuine. So how could we possibly come to this conclusion? Let's find out. So to catch everyone up to speed, this story actually takes place at the end of Death Metal, or at least pretty darn close to it. I believe it's in between the issues. I think it's like 6 and 7, the final issue, whichever one's the final issue of Death Metal. And everyone on Earth is prepping for this massive war, okay? And Hal Jordan essentially talks about what the other Green Lanterns are doing right now. Like, John's off setting up battle plans for new recruits, the last left in the multiverse. Like, Guy just wanted to go drink. Kyle's hanging out with the Teen Titans, you know, because he's got a love interest in Donna Troy still. But Hal just wanted to fly. He enjoyed the freedom. In fact, it reminded him of his father. His father had flown, and he'd like to think his last thoughts were freedom as he flew, but just like every pilot, pilots inevitably fall. And unfortunately, he knew the last thing his father felt was fear. And it makes sense he would know that after his connection with Parallax nonetheless. And as he continues to fly, he comes across a place known as the Valley of Rainbow Rings, where a massive battle had occurred with a Rainbow Lantern League army. And so Hal kind of looks towards all of those rings and wonders, like, will I have the same benefit as my father? Will I get a memorial or anything like that? Or whenever I die, is it just going to be darkness left because the bat who laughed is just shredding apart existence? However, inside the darkness of, unironically, the Valley of Rainbow Rings, his day is brightened by Sinestro as he approaches, who admits he didn't expect to find him amongst the dead. After all, that's kind of more of a fear thing. He expected him to be flying around and maybe banging some cosmic princess or something along those lines. He didn't think Hal really thought of the dead that way. However, as bad as they are, Hal is in no mood to tango with Sinestro. But Sinestro reminds him, hey, yo, we're allies, at least for the day. And Hal's like, yo, after that, we can throw hands again. Tonight, we're just not doing this stuff. And Sinestro, weirdly enough, looks at him. And he looks down towards all the lantern rings himself and says, this whole affair, this whole experience, this crisis event, this feels final, doesn't it? I really thought, maybe in a situation like this. And Hal responds, that maybe what? And suddenly, Hal Jordan puts it together. After everything? You want me to give you a Green Lantern ring at the end of everything? After everything you've done, the pain you've caused, the damage to everything that you've personally enacted. And it's a sad Sinestro who tragically looks further down and says, well, it's how I started. I thought perhaps I could end as a Green Lantern. And there's this moment where you begin to realize that Sinestro was terrified of the future for the multiverse, as the Bat Who Laughs continues to ravage the last of creation. Worse yet, he can feel the fear on everyone. Everyone is terrified. However, it's Hal Jordan who tells him, you don't deserve it after what you've done. And the two awkwardly stand there, till Sinestro turns to leave and says, no, I guess you're right. I don't. Maybe tomorrow, maybe all this fear is something we'll need anyway. And he begins to step away, saddened that his former protege still doesn't accept him. But Hal Jordan reflects on things, back to what happened to his father, and him proposing the question of what he thought about before he passed. And he wonders, maybe whenever you reach that moment, you see whatever it is you want to see. And maybe his dad saw a bright blue sky, rather than giving in to those fears. And right now, Hal Jordan needed to believe that. And so at the end of the world, Hal Jordan makes a decision. And he understands that at the end of things, you get to choose. And so, Hal Jordan chooses to see light, even in the darkest of places. And he conjures one of the rings off the ground and charges it. and it flies directly towards Sinestro. And Hal, in a moment of reflection, looks upon him and tells him it's never too late for a second chance. I, of all people, should know that, directly referencing his entire life as Parallax Hal Jordan, all the horrible things he'd done, things far worse than even Sinestro. And as the ring flies towards Sinestro, all he says is, all you have to do is say the words. And without hesitation, Sinestro responds, in brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. And there, in the Valley of Rings, Sinestro looks at that thing on his finger still. And he says he'd forgotten what it felt like to not be afraid. However, he's not going to say thank you to Hal Jordan. And Hal looks back and says, well, I wouldn't expect you to, not after all we've been through. However, I could use a little help. And Sinestro says, with what? There's nothing left. And Hal looks back and says, what else? We're gonna go look for a little blue. But blue, you say? Well, just like yellow and green, it's another emotional color. And they're gonna go look for hope instead of sitting around with the dead, longing and fear. And although we never directly get to see it, I'd like to think that Sinestro left his ring in the Valley of Rings that day, leaving to become a warrior, a hero once more, and unfortunately die at the end of Death Metal against the armies of Batman Manhattan, just like the rest of our heroes. I told you guys you'd be in for some pretty crazy business whenever it came to this one, and you'd see an entirely different side of Sinestro, and after all, you even got to see him smile in the end, so you guys kind of get that meme. And this might be just a little bit of a prelude, honestly, before I do a much bigger, more expansive look at the history of Sinestro and demonstrate to you guys exactly why he became the guy that he is. And why he's doing the things he's doing. He's just not doing it out of excessive villainy or like just a random evilness or anything along those lines, like a lot of the other villains in DC. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this hidden little moment with Sinestro where he has a change of heart, as he does several times throughout history, and points his goals towards saving the multiverse or the universe under any circumstances. So let me know what you guys think down low. Is this something you had come across before? And be sure to like and subscribe to me and the homies, and we'll catch you next time, Lanterns. Later.
Math, you'll join my list of dead after I tear you in half. And I laughed at the thought of them controlling me. I'm the ultimate dragon that spawned everything. I resist and defy.